Hello, I'm Ben Cooper from Literacy Waggle, and today we are looking at activities to promote mastery. Mastery and deeper learning is all about children using and applying their knowledge further at a greater depth. Not just being able to regurgitate information, but being actually able to use and apply those skills in a variety of contexts. And so today, what I'm going to do is run through five activities that you can set up for your children to help them develop their mastery skills. Okay, mastery style activity number 1 is fake marking. Fake marking is a really easy way to get children to flip their understanding and actually critique someone else's work. What I quite like to do is give children a piece of work with lots of mistakes in it, usually based upon misconceptions or mistakes that are commonly made by children. Give it to a child who you think has understood the lesson well and get them to mark the fake work. Not just tick and cross and identify the mistakes, but to explain why they've made the mistake and also how they can up-level and edit the work in order to improve on it. So the child becomes the teacher, the child becomes the critique, the child becomes the evaluator. In English, this could be a piece of writing where they identify spelling mistakes or vocabulary errors or sentence structure errors. But basically, the child has to identify the mistakes that have been made that are focused on the skill that is being developed. In mathematics, this could be a list of calculations. The child has to identify those misconceptions that have been made and advise the made-up pupil on what they need to do to improve. Okay, mastery style activity number 2 is, can you show your learning in a different way? Get their children to show what they've understood by getting them to represent it in a different forms. If they've done it visually, can they draw a diagram to show that, or can they write about it instead? It gives the opportunity for a child to share their learning in a different way, in a different context. In mathematics, for example, if a child has shown their number bonds using counters, can they show it using money, or can they show it using Numicon or another material that represents numbers in a different way? They can also represent that through drawings or represent it through diagrams. So it gives the children an understanding of what they've learnt, but asks them to apply it in a slightly different context. Okay, mastery task number 3 is developing reasoning. When children have learned a skill, it's always important to give them some opportunity to reason and explain their understanding. We've touched upon this in a previous video called How to Develop Reasoning Within Children, where there's 6 different ways of developing reasoning. But in brief, there's lots of different ways that you can develop a child's understanding through explanation. An example of one of these is odd one out. Based upon a subject or topic that you've been looking at, you identify 3 items and ask the child to explain which one is the odd one out. So if you're looking at odd and even numbers, you could put 2 even numbers and an odd number, explain which one is the odd one out. The child will hopefully use their newly applied skill to explain why the odd number is the odd one out. Alternatively, you can also make it open-ended. So in science, it could be that you have different types of animals, and the child to explain which is the odd one out. They use their knowledge of the animal kingdom and the categorizing of animals to identify one that is odd one out and explain why. There might not be a right or wrong answer, but what it gets them to do is reason, explain, and show their understanding at a greater depth. Okay, mastery task number 4, I really like this one, is the expert teacher or the mini teacher. If a child has really understood something and you know other children need a bit more support, give them a name badge or give them a tag that allows them to go around the classroom and identify misconceptions with other children. They become an extra teacher. This develops their skills just as much as the other students because they're using their knowledge and understanding of what they've learnt and they're applying it to identify mistakes within other children's work, and they become a teacher. They develop their explanation skills because they have to explain why that child has made a mistake and they have to support that child in finding the answer. This is a skill in itself. To be able to teach another child without giving them the answer is quite a difficult thing. And so by giving a child an expert teacher badge and giving them that responsibility, you're pushing their learning further forward. Tip number 5 for our mastery activities is a top tip list. Once a child has understood something and they've completed a process and they feel quite confident about it, ask them if they were to teach it to somebody else, what would be their top tips that they would advise their peers. So they identify the most difficult things in the process, whether it be in a column method, what is the most difficult part, maybe carrying, or maybe in writing, what's the most difficult part of forming a subordinate clause or forming an adverbial phrase. And they write a top tip list. It could be 3 or 4 top tips of how they complete a process and what they would advise other people to remember if they were learning that method. That gets them to evaluate their own practice and think about the things that they found most difficult about an activity or about a piece of learning, and then they get to write that down and explain that to somebody else. It gets them to reflect on their own learning as much as it gets them to teach others on how to do a process. This can be used across the curriculum in maths, English, science, but also in your topic subjects. The children can create a top tip list of how you would achieve or overcome certain problems within a certain skill or understanding. So those are our 5 ideas for developing mastery within children, for developing a deeper understanding of some form of skill. I hope you find this video useful. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel where we have many more videos like this, where you can develop and build and gather teaching ideas to use in the classroom. We always try and keep them as practical and as useful as possible. I'm Ben Cooper from Literacy Waggle. I hope you found this video useful. Have a really good day.